Hey, John LaRoy, how are you, brother? Happy Wednesday to you, man. At Apparel Redefined. What's going on, dude?
Not much, Kurt. How you doing?
Oh, my goodness gracious. John, if I was doing any better, you might have to call 911 right now. Like it's really, I'm having that good of a day. So that's
That good of a day, yeah.
it's a great day to have a great day. It's that time of year, whatever time somebody's watching this, it's like full-blown football season. It's baseball playoffs.
Baseball
It's just
playoffs, yeah,
it's
absolutely.
hockey's around the corner. Preseason started. So fall is here and just kids are in school. It's a phenomenal time of year. So
It really is, yeah.
what's hot and exciting? We're gonna talk today about scaling a business. Okay,
Okay.
scalability. You take care of, hundreds and hundreds of small business owners, entrepreneurs. First question I wanted to ask you is share a little bit your entrepreneurial journey, if you don't mind. So for folks that are new to you, new to Apparel Redefined, went to college, you were an athlete in college, just share like when did that entrepreneurial bug hit you for the first time?
I was 14. Um, yeah, so my first job, I was actually filling glue bottles for my dad's really good buddy. He owned a glue company. Um, Sounds a little crazy now after the days of Breaking Bad and all that type of stuff, but this was like 1994, 5. No, it was later than that, probably about 98. And he just sold it. I say just, it was probably about 5, 6 years ago. He just sold this company for mega millions. But back when I started, they were just getting into like automation innovation in terms of bottling. But I would literally take a 5 gallon bucket of glue and hold a small, what they call pounder between your legs and pour it. And that's how we would fill like their pounder glue bottles. And one of my best friends, Pete Johnson, his dad and my dad's friend were partners. And I just saw, like, I knew all these guys growing up, right? Because they were my dad's friends and they played college baseball together. But what I saw was like two different spectrums, right? Like I saw my dad in corporate America who selling software his entire life. When software like starting at like Oracle and then growing like through Sun Microsystems and IntelliCorp and then into e-learning. These corporate salesmen, like you get like kind of chewed up and spit out, right? Where you'd have 2 great years and then the quota would just get ridiculous. And then it was like, hey, a competitor wants you go over there, same thing, you have a lot of success. But like the network was always there, right? Whether he was selling for Sun or for Oracle, like all these buyers at HP and Dell, the government, like they were still the same buyers. So he was able to be really successful. But the company he was working for, they didn't truly value him, or it got to the point where they were too expensive to keep. And then it was kind of next man up. And then bring that into, where we're at today. The boomers that are sales, it's like there's not a home for them anymore. You're looking at a 65-year-old sales guy, or you're looking at a 22-year-old college kid, and one's a lot less expensive, right? So I saw that. I just didn't like how hard he worked all the time, traveling all over the country, missing a lot of stuff when we were younger, but then doing everything he possibly could. I didn't want to have, because one thing that like we always talked about was like the mental game of baseball. Like you can control what you can control and focus on that. Like the ump is going to make a bad call, you can't let it affect you. But there was a lot of things outside of his control that really affected the family, and I was like, I don't ever want that to happen. I saw my dad's buddy who owned his own business, right? And just in that little myopic perspective, I'm like, this guy is in control of his destiny. If they sell and they do well and they have a really good product, they're going to do well. Um, and then the guy who built our house, a home builder, Mike Randolph, another mentor of mine, uh, he worked in corporate America, then worked for a big builder, Henry Brothers, and then started his own contracting company. And another odd job, I would help him go to the new builds and sweep up and do, whatever he needed me to do. And again, it's just like, I respected the guys that took risks because I was always a risk taker. But then it just, you have this aura, and now like it's funny now I'm 40 years old and you own your own business. People think you're a millionaire no matter what. You just say like, hey, I own my own business, and you're like, well, you must be a millionaire. Like immediately, you must have gobs of money, gobs of time, and that was a perception I had at 14 years old, and I just thought that just came with it, right? And I wanted that because that's, even though the perception was false, at that, for a lot of people, I just thought that was the case because I saw the other side of it. My mom being a nurse, working night shift, my dad working corporate sales. So like, I know they didn't own the business and I saw what that was. So I thought I want to do something different. And I just liked the idea. So I was really good with my hands. I was building, you guys out on the East Coast call it cornhole. We call it bean bags. So that was kind of like my job in college. I brought all my tools to college and I would build beanbag sets, custom beanbag sets for anyone in the Cleveland area. Then I did work at a restaurant and stuff, but I always knew like my favorite class. So that was 14 all the way now to 18. 18 years old is when I was 18. So what was that? I'm sorry, 22, 21, 2004, 5. I think Shark Tank like either was just hitting TV or getting close. But Marco Simonis, everyone started focusing on entrepreneurship. No one knew what that word meant before, right? No colleges had an entrepreneurship program. If they did, there might have been 10 in the country. And my school, John Carroll, had just added entrepreneurship as a major, but I was a senior. And I obviously couldn't major in it, but I did take a couple classes. And my favorite class by far, so, I had two favorite classes at John Carroll. My first was my first year seminar. The teacher's name was Mark Lynn. I'll never forget. But we just came in and we just argued, and it was mainly me and him. But all the other students, he'd bring up a topic. It was like, what do you think about the genocide in Africa right now, the Tutsis and Hutus? And it was like, argue about it, and it was great because I hadn't had anything like that in high school. And it was, we did, but like we'd always argue about religion and stuff like that. So I was able to bring that in from religion and then the argumentative topics and persuasion and stuff like that. But anyways, then fast forward to senior year, they had this entrepreneurship track and there really wasn't any organization to it. It was just like, hey, are you an alumni of the school? Do you own your own business? Yeah. Okay, come in and tell a war story. So that was the class. They would just come in, the students, we would ask them a question and they would just talk. And I'm like, man, this sounds like what I want to do. Like, it sounds hard, but everything else I had learned at John Carroll, which is a heavy finance accounting school, was to go be a cog in someone else's wheel. And I just knew, you just have that gut feeling like this isn't for me. And I'm like, I just don't want to do it. And for the first time going to a class other than Mark Lennon, the first year seminar, I'm like, I'm really interested. I want to do this. I want to be wearing 12 hats. I want to have these problems. I want to work all night. Like, it didn't scare me. It motivated me. So I always kind of had the entrepreneurial, bug or itch. But then after college, I got a chance to work with one of my college friends and college hockey players. His dad owned a construction business down in South Florida, and they did the manufacturing up in Cleveland and shipped all the product down to South Florida. We install safety rails on condo buildings. And again, it was like 22 years old, never really been in charge of anything. And now I'm in charge of a crew of 8 to 10 guys every day in the South Florida heat in the summer, working in construction and installing railings. And it was, again, really good experience to be in charge of people that are older than you, because that's exactly what I walked into when I started working with Apparel Redefined. So yeah, it's a simple question, long story, but again, it was that guy that owned the business. And at this time, he had owned it, for 40, 50 years. We were working in Florida. He had that beautiful house on the water. He had a boat. He had all the cars. And 22, South Florida, chasing girls and good times. I'm like, man, if this guy owns a business, that's what he's got. This is the vehicle that's going to get me this. And again, it was just that perception versus reality, and it can be a reality, but you got to get there. One of the things that we talked about in our last episode with Chris was, follow your passion. That's a buzzword you hear, right? And I just had we had the manufacturing careers, MCIP. I'm not sure what all the letters stand for, but we had them in yesterday, right? And there was 14 students I gave a tour to, and these are all kids looking to get into manufacturing careers that are anywhere from 22 to 26 years old. And we'll bring on 6 or 7 interns for about 6 weeks and see how they do. But I brought that up. I'm like, I hear two things a lot, and I hear young people say it because they hear it. There's no such thing as a stupid question, and follow your passion. I'm like, both of those are bullshit. And I explained why. But anyhow, uh, I'm like, you need to bring your passion to whatever you're doing. And that's what was something that a lot of these entrepreneurs were saying, because the buzzword of follow your passion wasn't around in 2002. If it was, I didn't hear it. But one thing I did notice is that you might not choose like the industry or the niche or the product, and you develop it 4 or 5 years later. You have to bring your passion to that product, to that service, to whatever you're doing to make it work. Otherwise, it won't. Um, so yeah, that was a big takeaway, and that wasn't a problem for me. Like honestly, like making t-shirts is not a passion of mine. Like it's fun, or it can be fun, it's cool, but my passion really is growing this business, seeing other people win, helping other companies market, brand, and win as well. And really the team aspect. And in a manufacturing setting, if I was making brake pads, tires, seat belts, whatever it is, I'm making t-shirts. It's the same iteration of processes, systems, team building, um, you know, we not me mentality that will make an auto company run, a t-shirt company run, a microchip processing plant, all the way down to, whatever widget you want to talk about. There's fundamentals when we talk about sports. Those fundamentals will hold true in all those different niches or manufacturing sectors. So that's what I really enjoy. That's a really long answer. I apologize about that.
That was phenomenal, dude. I learned a ton about you, and that was a great stretch. As a matter of fact, we might change topics today. We'll save our topic that we were going to get into for another time. I want to dig into that. So, I'm much older than you. Yeah, I just had a little bit of an epiphany. I've heard that for years. Pursue your passion. Pursue your
Mhm.
passion. If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Okay, you're hitting it on the head. I feel you're hitting on the head, and I'd love for you to expand on that. So, for these young folks that you spoke with yesterday, maybe your kids, other old guys like me, don't follow your passion, but you're making a distinct difference on you can bring your passion.
Mhm.
And you could do it in no matter what you just said, whether it's brake pads, whether you're sweeping the streets, whatever you're doing, bringing your passion. What advice, suggestions do you have for folks as far as like not necessarily following your passion, but just whatever you choose, whatever life chooses for you, or whatever you choose in life? How do you pursue? How do you bring your passion on a daily basis?
First, I think you need to understand yourself. Like, what what does work ethic mean to you? And one of the things I asked these kids yesterday is like, one of the reasons why I say don't follow your passion, because your passion at 18 years old is going to be different than it was when you will be 27. Will you be 35 and 40 and 60? I'm like, my passion at 14 years old is playing NHL 94. Like that was it. If I followed my passion, I'd still be in my parents' basement playing NHL 94, right? But my passion's obviously changed. And like you have to realize that. But what didn't change, and it's gotten better, was the chip on my shoulder. And some people call it a negative or positive. I've always had it, right? The work ethic, like I don't want to come in last. I am going to outwork you. I am going to do that. Like these things that we hold near and dear, um, that you develop over a lifetime. You need to know what motivates you, right? Maybe it's for some people being super creative or super helpful or whatever it is that you can bring, not just, once a day or once a month, but every day. How can you bring that, and how can that benefit you in your current position or role that you're in? Because whatever that is, and if it's not your passion, you don't love it, well, then figure out what you will love and use this as a platform to get there. So um, we talked a little bit about that yesterday, and I think it resonated with some kids because I'm like, what do you think it means to follow your passion? And a lot of them couldn't answer the question, because I'm like, what is your passion? I don't know. So like, so then how do you follow it if you don't know it, right? So what are the things that, like we talked about earlier, what are the things that you can control? You can show up on time, right? You can work hard. You can ask when things are done, like, what else can I do? You want to be that kid on a team that, not the brown nose, not the kiss ass, but like when you talk to a coach 10, 20 years down the road, 5 years down the road, like, hey, that kid would run through a wall for me. Like, how do you be that kid for someone? Not the most talented. Like, you always hear, like, as a coach, who is your favorite player? The kid that would outwork anybody, right? And as a business owner, as a manager, it's not always the most talented person, because talent, is given. It's not chosen. And but work ethic is definitely chosen.
Yeah, I love that. And I think what I'm hearing, what you're describing is, really having that unapologetic competitive spirit,
Hmm.
And like you're saying, I had a friend years ago, he retired where he worked for, we had a friend of yours that worked for community, the Parks Department, if I'm mistaken, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, Rocco. Yeah.
Rock, yep. And so I had a buddy, and when he would describe what he did, like he'd be around in a small, community in the city trucks or cleaning. He was like, I beautify my community. So even though like he's, sweeping
Mhm.
or mowing or plowing or whatever he was doing at that time, he branded himself. He brought like just such an unapologetic passion to what he did. He was like, I'm not sweeping the streets, I'm beautifying my community. So I love what you're describing here. You deal with tons and tons of entrepreneurs that come to you. They lean on you for support, outsourcing, your expertise on print on demand, branded apparel, all of the above. How do you, when you're talking to your customers, your entrepreneurs, if they lean on you for some business advice, or they're leaning on you like, man, and we've had folks right on the show, like, hey, entrepreneurship is this, man. It's never, I don't know, for most of us, it's not this, it's that up and down. What do you tell some of your entrepreneurs, some of your friends, as far as like, navigating those tough times or like bringing that competitive spirit? What do you share there?
Well, I caution them, like, right, where when they ask me, like, hey, what do you think, or what should I do? I'm not you. And this isn't my business, right? This is your business. So what is it that you want to do? This, it depends on what stage they're in too. Like if they're a startup, if they're, working their way through it, whatever level they're in. If they're an established company, they got their marketing, they got their branding. Hey, what do you think? Like, what's a hot product? Fine, that's an easy topic. But like, if they're in the early stages and they're like, what do you think of this color? Or what do you think of that color? Or how about my logo? Do you like that? I'm like, no, I don't. but it's not my company. It's not my vision, my passion. So there's that word again. But does what you're doing and what you feel and what you're trying to convey, does it sit right with you? Like you get that eye test, right? Like, we talk about prejudice, right? It's a word that's a buzzword, or a bad word, but it's an absolute reality of life. And first impression, I guess, is a better word to say than prejudice, but you have it internally. If you don't like what your logo looks like, or your message, your marketing, your tagline, if those, when you say it and it doesn't sit right with you, then it's probably not right. Or if you look at it and you've got to look away because you don't like how it looks, it's probably not right. So if you feel that by me saying I like it, that shouldn't sway you, right? It's just my opinion. So I try and get down and dirty with some of my friends and clients, where it's like, is this really what you want, or is this just something? Hey, here's on my desk. I gotta hand it off to someone, and make me some apparel.
I think you just went mute.
Sorry, if
There.
you're truly trying to build a brand, like we had Chad on, like there's some serious thought that goes into it, right? Um, we talked with a different company, and this guy, was giving some consulting feedback, like, hey, Chad, I really like what you're doing, but I don't see how your logo of your company kind of um, encompasses everything that you're doing with Mental Joe. Why? And then he has an explanation. This is why I have that logo for the combat veterans. They resonate with it, this, and that. And it's like, okay, it makes sense. But then you got to tell that story, because no one knows about it on your website if they're not a combat veteran. So it was kind of eye opening for him, because he's just been in like, hey, I'm in this world. How could you not know it? But if he's trying to open his market, then he has to do a little bit more explanation, or some more content as to why that is the logo. So again, a really long answer, but it's more of where does that person want to go with what they're asking me to do, right? Is it just a means to an end, or is it part of their vision? Is it a promotional type item? So I need to know more, um, than just simply like, hey, here's my recommendation.
And bottom line, it's really, when you bring that passion, it's all about the relationships is what it boils down to. It does, like you said, whether it's printed, branded apparel or silk screening, whatever it is that you provide, your solution, your service. It's all about those relationships. We're going to wrap up. Any last words of wisdom as we talk about entrepreneurship that you want to share for today?
I don't know. You always put me on the spot, so I'm gonna put you on the spot now.
All right.
I'm gonna flip the
My
script. Answer a
I
question with this question. What's the best
my
business advice you got?
so my best, you know what? It's I'm a huge fan of the excuse me, hyper focus.
Hyper focus.
Hyper focus. And I'm reading a book right now. It's called The One Thing by Gary Keller. It's a, blockbuster bestseller, blah blah blah. The One Thing. And so a tagline that I use constantly is, how do you niche down till it hurts? Niche down till it hurts, where it hurts to say, gee, customer, like if you have a customer that's not a great fit, maybe they're, just, taking a lot of your time, your energy, your resources, you're just not aligned. Guys, do yourself a favor, do them a favor, let them go to somebody that it would be a better fit. If you have things on your plate that are, again, eating up your time, resources, I call it those profit killers, those time wasters, just being relentless about your time, because that's all we have is time, and it's making good choices. So I think by really staying in your niche, staying focused, hyper focused on what you bring best to the market, that's where you really can move the needle. That's my 2 cents. Anything that you want to add from that?
I was saying, was that how you felt at 25 and 30, or is that evolved into what you feel now?
So if we have another minute, I'll bore you with a quick story. So it's probably 2000. I had a wholesale business, and I was trying to diversify, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we broke like a sales mark, and I was all excited about it. And I had a wholesale business. We were trying to tip my toe in a little bit of manufacturing. I was doing a little bit of importing. I had like this little catalog thing that I was doing, and then in 2000. I was trying to get into e-commerce, which, in 2000, that's when the internet bubble happened. So that
Sure.
wasn't the brightest thing to do. So my sales were going like this, but man, my profits, like my cash flow was just terrible. And I'm like, man, I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong. So I hired a consultant, and God bless her. She should still be on my holiday card, line. And so she comes in and she's like, all right, tell me about your business. And I'm like, man, she's going to be so impressed. I'm like, I'm doing 5 different things. I'm diversified, right? And she's like, all right, well, what are you doing? I'm like, I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this. I'm like, all right, well, explain each of them. And I'm trying to explain all of them. And within 30 minutes, she goes, well, I can tell you exactly what your problem is and why you're losing money. And at this pace, you're going to just go out of business. I'm like, I just met you 30 minutes ago. How do you know what my problem is? You're doing 5 things horribly instead of just doing one thing exceptionally. She's like, what are you absolutely best at? And I'm like, well, this is our core. This is what we do. Da, da. She's like, all right, where's the future at? I'm like, well, I know the internet bubble just burst, but I think it's in e-commerce. I really think that's where the future's at. She's like, well, drop everything else. You have no competitive advantages in these other things. You're just wasting your time, wasting your money, wasting your resources. Give everything you've got to e-commerce. And I'm like, well, how good are you as a consultant? Because you just solved all my problems in 30 minutes. I don't need you again. But in all seriousness, man, when I laser focused and I got rid of all these other things, it was a relief. The company took off. We ended up on the Internet Retailer top 1,000 companies 3 years in a row. And it was all
Wow.
thanks to like just being laser focused. And so, that was a long, long, long time ago, but that's my story, man.
Nice. Okay.
So staying hyper focused. So, all right, dude, this was a great conversation, man. I didn't expect to go here today. So we're going to wind down. I'm going to invite everybody to connect with John on LinkedIn. I encourage you, stop by Apparel Redefined. They have amazing people. I tell you, John, it's one of the most rewarding things for me is when we bring your customers on and they just rant and rave about, not only you, but really your employees. And it's just as a
Yeah.
credit to you as
Yeah.
a leader on what an all-star team that you've created at Apparel Redefined. So I commend and compliment you for what you're doing there, my friend.
Appreciate that, Kurt. Same to you.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So, hey, we're going to wind down. We wish everybody an amazing rest of your day. Come back and visit us next week. We got another great topic, and we will see you guys soon.
All right. Thanks, Kurt.